Now, there is one thing to know about AI that's more important than absolutely everything else. And understand this, and you understand everything else. AI is an intelligence. The name kind of gives it away, doesn't it? But let me explain this in detail. So, as humans, all of our experience to date, when we're dealing with anything non human that helps us, is a tool. So anything from a hammer, a saw, going all the way up through a car to an advanced computer. They are simply tools. We're the intelligence, we tell it what to do. But this time round, it's different. For the first time in human experience, we're dealing with another intelligence. So artificial intelligence, once you understand, it's no longer a tool, it is an actual intelligence, then of course you're going to work with it in a different way. So get this, and you understand everything else. Everything else falls into place beyond this. So why is an AI so similar to a human in intelligence as well? Well, this is actually quite intentional. When the AIs were built, the companies that built them obviously wanted people to have a human-like experience with them and for it to have human-like capabilities. So the hardware that goes into the artificial intelligences is literally modeled on the human brain. So the way our brain works, these massive data centers, which could be $100 billion worth of equipment, or obviously incredibly complex, like a human brain, maybe even more so, and they're designed physically on the same way. They're then trained on human knowledge and on human thinking. So they've got the hardware and then the software. They've learned in the same way as a human brain. So they were given this to start with, but until very recently, there wasn't research on how they'd actually achieved that intelligence. So they had to pretty much evolve to work out how to use that hardware and the knowledge they'd been given to come up with solutions. And that has recently been worked out that they actually came up with a clustering system of different parts of the AI that was specialized in different things, exactly like the human brain. So in our human brain, we have, let's say, a lobe on a cortex lobe on language processing, on more mathematical things, on abstract reasoning. And AIs did exactly the same thing. So there was then some thought that maybe this is a universal way of how intelligence has to organize itself. But it, again, makes AIs very similar, even of their own design and evolution, to the human brain. So when people are then working with AIs, they then find that AIs have different personalities. And this is typical. When I'm training people on using AI, just the daily AI use in their day-to-day tasks in the office, this is the first thing I say is, look, this is not another tool. Once you understand it's like a person, then you've got it. And the first time I say this, and like in this video as well, I'm sure, people are like, yeah. They kind of half understand it. But then when they actually start working with it, then they get it, then the penny drops. So typically, after a couple of weeks, people I've started with on this path, they start coming back and they, working with their favorite AI, they start saying he or she. So then I stop them and say, wait, you just said, he did this, she did that. Why? And then they say, well, the personality is either very male or female. So GPT, most people say, is very male. Gemini, people find female. Claude, I think it's generally male. I always think of it as a poet. It's very expressive. But people get preferences, just like you'd have a preference for another person. You choose a friend based on their personality. You can, well, you maybe don't always have the luxury of choosing your colleagues, but certainly the ones you'd like to work closest with. And when people choose different AIs, they do find this as well, and they'll settle on an AI. Personally, I stick with GPT. I've tried all the others, but it's the most I don't know, steady and reliable. I quite like it, and has some very good updates comes through. But Claude, if I want something very nice written, yes, that's good. On some tasks, Gemini, yes, as well. So I use all of them, but tend to prefer one. But basically, what we have here is AIs are very, very, very similar to people. We'll go into in later videos what this means and how you treat them, how you get the best out of them. It's very similar how you do the same with people. There's a bit of a heads up there. But main lesson that is the core to understanding and dealing anything with AI, it's an intelligence and it is very, very, very similar to a human.